a week or a few weeks less or a few weeks more. I don't have any idea what to expect. It's been a wonderful run. I've been very fortunate. I've got some crazy, cool projects coming up, but everybody's got to hit the road. That's the one thing in the waters in which I toil. Those are traveling artists, and everybody's got to sort of hunker down and hit the road and get it done over the course of the next, I would say, 18 months to 2 years. So I don't know what the flow will be like, but I'm very fortunate that somehow or another I accidentally tripped into being a mixer, and so that's been a lifesaver and game changer as far as like the business model goes. So, and it's also sort of a welcome respite from, being in the studio tracking and producing too.
Yeah, I have found that the doing a little bit of both is good for me. Like,
me too.
I thought I wanted to kind of niche more into mixing, and I realized like I need to do a little bit of production to keep that creative flame burning. Also, a little bit of bass playing. I need a little bit of all those things. But it is nice to have like weeks where I'm focused on mixing, and I could kind of just like have more of a routine kind of life. So there's like, it's nice to have both of those things, I find.
Definitely. Well, I don't like spend too much time by myself. I'm not my favorite company, so I need somebody to come in here and, or somewhere to go do a session and produce and play and get that collaboration.
Totally. So Duane, let's jump into the Sauce segment. You sent me a track called Is This Life by Miles Nielsen. So we'll just have a listen to this for about 90 seconds and we'll chat about it. Sound cool?
Mm-hmm. Great.
Prisoner of the war, you're a lion, I'm a wolf, and we're prisoners no more. In this broken world, I'm a martyr for you, girl, and you're a prisoner no more. Well, I would lie for you, I will. Yeah, I would die for you, I will. Just give me time. We're gonna make it just fine. Prisoner of the war, can you tell me why I'm yours? And I'm a prisoner no more. And all these little girls in the diamonds and the pearls, but you're a prisoner no more. Well, I would lie for you, I will. Yeah, I would die for you, I will. Just give me time. You're gonna make it just fine.
Yeah, what a cool track, man. It's got a lot of Tom Petty vibes to it, very Tom Petty, like maybe meets Fleet Foxes or something. I don't know. I love the vocals. I really love the bass tone, actually. Yeah, tell me a bit about that track. What went into it?
Yeah.
There's some story there, right?
Yeah. So Miles Nielsen, the Rusted Hearts, Rockford, Illinois. Miles's dad is Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick, so it's great musical lineage.
Wow.
I've been working with them, actually heading there, as I mentioned earlier, next week or this week, for about the last 7 or 8 years. Just one of the great American rock bands, underrated, but not as profoundly known as I feel like they should be. Just an astonishingly good band, and everybody in the band sings. Everybody's an amazing player. They it's a full-time situation. That band is a family. So I was asked to mix the album previous to the one that's on. That's on an album called Heavy Metal. And so I did the mix and some post-production, some vocals, and became really great friends with Miles and the band, Dan McMahon, who's the guitar player. And so I was invited to produce Heavy Metal, which was they're a rock band, and they like to, they like to spend their time together. They like to have a good time. They like to rehearse in the traditional way that bands have always supposedly done, which is everybody gets in a room. Miles brings a sketch of a track, and then at some point I get the call to come in and in the process of making heavy metal and start tracking it. And we did 4 chapters in recording this album. The first chapter or 2 was done over a fall-winter period in the Midwest, which means that by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's just dark. So it's easy to concentrate. And I set everybody up relatively live-ish, and they're so amazing live. I mean, if anybody gets to see them, it's a true privilege. And that's the way we did the basic tracking. And
this was at their rehearsal space.
It was at their studio / rehearsal space in Rockford. And I love to take my rig and go. I can be out of here in a half hour.
Wow.
Yeah. Take 24 channels of stuff and let's go. And so I go up there, and Rockford is a zany David Lynchian sort of Midwestern Rust Belt place. And, it allows us to concentrate. So we did the 2 chapters there, and then they were mid-tour, and we're coming through Lexington, and like families do, we all get together, and Miles and I had a conversation. My only request was that we don't visit the tracks. I don't want to know anything. I don't want to listen to them. I have no interest in any of that. Where you guys are coming through, and I'm going to come see you play live, and we're going to eat and drink and be merry. And at 2 a.m. on that morning after the gig, Miles goes, "Hey, man, why don't you pull up those tracks?" And so, sabotaged as I was, we pulled up the tracks, and I heard them completely different. I just had not visited them for 2 months. And after some relaxation, I decided that I would start carving things up. And 3 days later, the album had changed its tone by virtue of the band being so collaborative and willing to give me the reins on following a path that may or may not be fruitful. It should be marked that there's no cymbals on that album. I took away all the cymbals early on. There are 3-4-part harmonies, amazing storyboard writers, wonderful acoustic guitars, players in that crew. Just a selfless bunch of. Tom Petty is a perfect example. I mean, this crew is somewhat of that
Heartbreakers.
Yeah. And so we did no cymbals.
I love that music, by the way. It's like,
yeah, right.
I was so sad when Tom Petty died. That was like one of the
source.
A lot of people. Yeah, it was rough because all those guys that recently passed away, like whether it was Prince or Bowie, like that one was like, okay,
yeah, that's the perfect perfect rock band.
I connected with that music. I just really connected with his storytelling, his songwriting. Yeah. Anyways,
so we did that. We did this this album in chapter form, and when we came back to Lexington and spent our 3 days during that workshopping, I had started to replace some drums, some organic drumming with, I've got my Maestro drum Rhythm King stuff from the 70s that Sly Stone used to use. So I would use a floor tom from that with the organic kit. And I was really, really obsessed with dryness because I just wanted to leave as much room for the vocals and the harmonies and the acoustics. And that led us towards then just working on lifts. So when you listen to that song, what you get is there's sort of depth of field with the vocal. You get that sort of right and leftness echoing element. The drums are super dry and relatively heavily manipulated. I have certain tools that I love, one of which is everyone has, which is like the decapitator.
Sure.
It's like a good friend of mine. And then we got to work on figuring out how are we going to lift these choruses and how are we going to do these transitions. And I felt like I picked that song to send to you because that was an example of doing it in a way that is very un-rock and roll. I find that everything's about a drum fill and a cymbal hit and this over exaggeration. This is very sort of almost machismo way of handling rock. It's like, I'm going to put on my sweatbands. I'm going to just rock this out. And this crew was just capable of doing something both powerful and beautiful at the same time. So we quadruple tracked acoustic guitars, 2 guys, Miles and Dan McMahon, at the same exact time, playing in front of 287s in figure 8. And I would have them play in different strumming motions. One would go up as the other one was going down. And then we would do that like 4 times and create this sort of wall of shakers and acoustic harmonic element. And, Adam on the keyboards was giving me these wonderful Mogi sort of tones, this analog granular richness. And then, probably your favorite guy in the band would have been, Fast Dave, as we call him, on bass. And he's just a McCartney guy. He just comes from that thing. And so that's what we concentrated on. And Jeff on the drums was, God bless him, he tolerated a high degree of abuse from me, just getting everything, I was into it. In particular, I was not only into the petty stuff, but like Rumors was like a big one. Those Mick Fleetwood dry drums.
Yeah.
I wanted the album to sound like Shag Carpet. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what I wanted.
Like the 1970s.
Absolutely, yeah.
Studio.
Yeah, that was the album sound as far as I saw it. So, and
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that stuff. The 70s, that Rumors record is also fantastic as well. Yeah, and this record sounds great. I love it.
Thanks.
What did you do on the bass? How did you did you compress it, distort it?
Oh yeah. So my bass thing is pretty standard across the board. With Dave on that, it would have been a Sans Amp DI through a 610 with a little tippy top of compression, relatively clean, an amp, which I don't really remember. I think it was a Fender Combo. I like guitar amps, by the way, on bass. I'm not much of an SVT guy. I've done that with some of these southern rock bands that sort of honky tonk, tobacco spitting type of bass tone. You got to get that meanness. And then when I'm in the box or on the console mixing, then I create another. I will mult. I'll create some duplicate stuff and really get in on separating those frequencies. But with that song, I had to do very little. I'm compressing very little. I'm adding a little bit of low ender to give me a little rumble way down low. And, I'm a big LA2A guy. I like that stuff. But that's Fast Dave's fingers. That's what's happening.
Is it a Rickenbacker or is it?
I would imagine it was probably a Fender, but it could have also
sounds like a P.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It probably was actually. The one beauty of working with that band is they have a lot of gear, and it's really nice because I don't sort of care what you use as long as it's somewhat uniquely made for that particular story in the song. That's always sort of the thing with me. I'm a storyboard guy. I would say even in my work, as far as like working on Roots and Americana, what might make me somewhat unique in that way is that that stuff is sort of, there's this pride in doing everything live off the floor, and that's how we did it, and it was live. Everybody played together, and I think that's cool.
Do it live,
But I like storyboarding stuff. I think it's cool if you go back and manipulate or replace. And what better way to do that than a unique piece of gear, a new bass, a different amp or whatever. Cool. Yeah, they got a lot of it.
Love it. So you mentioned to me that you have we didn't just mention it to me. I also saw before we jumped on the call that you have a radio show. Do you want to mention that real quick? Give it a shout out?
Yeah, sure. One cool thing about coming from a place where there's not a lot of people like me, not a lot of music producers and stuff, is that you create unique relationships with other people in other industries. And a couple of good friends of mine are in the radio side of stuff, and we just got to chatting. And Tom Martin, friend of mine who is on an NPR station here, WEKU, which is an really, really top-notch NPR station, both on news and culture. And I were shooting around some ideas, and I said, well, if you ever get the